What do you not get? Again, bearing in mind that this is a watered down version of a watered down version, the bill would have set federal standards for early and mail-in voting and make Election Day a national holiday, among other provisions. The most obvious common sense things you can imagine. It would also mandate that voters provide some form of identification before casting a ballot, a requirement that many Democrats had previously resisted. That's in for two reasons. One, because people like Joe Manchin have bought into right-wing propaganda about voter IDs and things like that. But more importantly, to get some Republicans to cross over. So this is bipartisan watch, day 500. Did it work? We get their racist ass provision and we add it to the voting rights bill. Did they line up for it to support it? That's what they want. They want voting ID. No, 50 didn't, 10 didn't, 1 didn't. You get nothing. You give them what they want, you get nothing. Because while they want that, more importantly, they don't want you to be able to vote. And they certainly don't want the Democrats to pass anything. Now, sharing my anger on this topic, we have Ilhan Omar, who says the filibuster and the Democratic senators who continue to uphold it are killing our democracy. That is obviously true. And you have some good progressives who would do something about it, but far too many would not. Now, I have an idea of one other individual who might also be frustrated by this whole thing. And he joins us now, Gary Chambers. Welcome to the Damage Report. How's it going, man? It's been a while.
Hey, brother, how are you? It has been a while.
No, we're super excited to have you back. We had a lot of what passes for fun in American politics at the end of last year. And then you went off to serve in a different way. But now you're back and we're very glad about that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, man. I was listening to you talk and everything you said is spot on. We are in a deeply troubling time right now in this country. And we've got two people that consistently become a hurdle for the rest of us. And it's unfair to the American people.
Yeah. West Virginia is a great place. Arizona's a great place. They deserve representation. Why do they get to determine if we can vote? Like, why should Georgians not be able to vote because the senator from West Virginia and Arizona are like, no, I don't really care about it. And it's more than just those two in this topic. There's enough Democrats. Like, you have to get rid of the filibuster to have any chance of this succeeding. You have to get rid of the filibuster, and there's multiple who will not sign on to that. And it's just incredibly frustrating because the stakes couldn't be higher, and we did all this work to get to a position where it's possible. Like, they elected 2 Democrats in Georgia. Nobody believed it could be done, and we still don't get any progress. We don't get any reform.
Well, that means we got to grow our margins. Like, we can't be accepting a 50-50 equal on both sides with the vice president. We need to grow our margins. We need to mount up and make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that people who are running for the U.S. Senate in some of these contested races, that they win. Because what we see is that we know we need more done there because we got people that are obstructionists, people who don't care about what happens in places like Louisiana and Georgia. And let's be honest, they don't have to be as concerned about black and brown people in some instances because they don't represent us. And so when you live where I live in a state that is 35% black, we see these things as a real impact on our quality of life and ability to be able to move things forward. And what we don't know is what attempts will be done in the years ahead to continue to try and strip away our rights down here in the South.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We definitely do need to do that. We need to win some of these seats currently held by Republicans, and maybe even more importantly, we need to boot the corporate Dems out of the party. Sinema cannot win her primary. Joe Manchin is a harder target to beat considering the state, but we have got to win those spots. But while you're 100% right about that's what we need to do, and by the way, and we need to continue pressuring before then because we can't wait 2 years, we can't wait 4 years, we certainly can't wait 6 years for this. The difficulty is that this directly impacts our ability to do that. So we need to elect more Democrats. How do you do that? You win in states that currently Democrats are not winning in. And what is happening in those states, especially the purple states, the states that are trending blue? What are they doing? They're passing all these bills that make it harder to vote, harder to register. Election day is not gonna be a holiday. You can't do mail-in balloting. You can't help people vote. You can't give them water in line. And so we, in theory, need to get to future elections and win those spots. A bill like this, or especially the For the People Act, would get rid of those laws, would make it easier to vote so that you could win those races. But we're not gonna do that. They're not gonna get rid of the filibuster. And so all these states, and by the way, let's go through it. Between the beginning of this year and September 27th, at least 19 states had enacted 33 laws that make it harder for Americans to vote. Now, there were other states that were making it easier to vote, easier access. Let's see, 25 states enacted 62 laws with provisions that expand voting access. But the issue is, and this was an investigation done by the Brennan Center for Justice, the states that enacted restrictive laws are ones where it's already difficult to vote. The ones that enacted expansive laws are the ones where it's already relatively easy to vote. And so we effectively have something like voting rights apartheid, where if you live in a good state, you can vote. If you live in a difficult state, a really red state, it's harder and harder. So how do you win in those spots where they're making it so impossible to actually vote, Gary?
Well, I think part of that is, we have to look at this in the long game. And that's a difficult thing to say when we recognize all the things that we're up against. And for me, organizing is about being very strategic in our moves forward. We got to continue to apply pressure and not let up on them. We've got to apply pressure to the president because he can use his bully pulpit more than he does. He can also leverage the resources that go into those states and say, you know what, if you're not gonna look out for the people in other states, then those people, especially in a state like West Virginia, where we know that the federal government is sending more to West Virginia than West Virginia is sending to the federal government, that if you are not look out for the people in other communities and other places, then why should we be sending money from California to take care of the people of West Virginia? And that is a reality, right? And the president needs to have those conversations in a very real way with Joe Manchin. Instead of letting one person dictate the destiny of an entire people. And that is what is so troubling to me about this entire situation. It is giving him this false sense of power, right? He may have a power in this moment, but outside of that, who gives a damn who Joe Manchin is, right?
Yeah.
And so this makes him feel important. This makes him feel relevant. And we are empowering him more by not ensuring that he does not have the ability to go back into West Virginia and look like a champion.
Yeah, no, you are 100% right. Yeah, and one of the reasons we focused a lot on this on the show, and unfortunately, this is a period where we're outside of an election, less people are paying attention, and that bothers me so much is like what happens isn't always just due to the days, the weeks before it. Like look, the 2024 election, fast forward a couple years, we're gonna be working for months trying to get people to vote, get them invested and all that stuff. And that is crucial. But in some ways, right now is as important in determining who's gonna vote because they're manipulating state laws to make it harder and harder for Democrats to win the states that were responsible for Joe Biden winning before. In the same way that on the show yesterday, I was talking about like they're taking over these school boards, these insane anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. We're gonna be doing stories in 3 years about the insane things that these school boards are doing. And that'll be important then, but it's because of now. And so we cannot take a year or 2 years off between these elections. We have to be invested and we have to put pressure on the politicians we have right now. And that's why Gary's so right. Joe Biden is supposed to be worried about his legacy, but he seems incredibly apathetic about it. He's watching Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, and that's what we're gonna talk about next, like chop out huge sections of it. And he's acting like it doesn't matter, which is either a really risky strategy or an honest reflection of his attachment to these things, his true attachment to getting things done.
I try to be diplomatic when I speak about the president. But Joe is who we always knew he was. Yeah. And as he has served in this office, he has revealed that. And if I had the opportunity to talk with the president, what I would tell him is everything that you gain, you're gonna lose in a short order. If you look back, the Obama presidency was crippled from the midterm elections after they passed the Affordable Care Act on because he lost the House on the other side of that, right? And what's gonna happen in this situation with President Biden? How does he maintain this slim majority that he has if he is not more aggressive to ensure that voting rights are passed? And listen, you can't keep asking black and brown people to get up and mobilize and organize to show up in droves if you ain't giving us nothing. Because we already, many of us did not want you, right?
Yeah.
There are many of us who were not in favor of this president. However, we knew we could not go in the direction that we were in. And now you are there and not giving us the very things that we demanded from day one, right? These are not new things. These are things that we have said from day one. We're just watching the Supreme Court right now work against qualified immunity, right? These are things that are working against black folks in America. And we have a president who's sitting there with a black vice president, and they are letting a signature piece of legislation to the core voting bloc of this party go up in smoke. And how do you then come back? You can't come back to folks like me and say, hey, charge them up and get them to go out and vote. What do I have to go and get them to go out and vote for?
Yeah, it's an indisputable point, and hopefully someone will bring it to the people in power.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.